This podcast is rated S for spoilers. Listener discretion is advised. Don't forget to view our spoiler-free companion video on our Half Past Podcast channel on YouTube. Welcome to the Half Past Podcast. This is episode 68, the movie review of Thor Ragnarok. We'll also be discussing the Star Wars trailer.
All right.
I'm Graham Ricks, and here with me is my friend and co-pilot Ian Jones.
So I've had one thing on my mind a lot lately, and it's just not going to get better. Probably not until sometime in January. And that is Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Right?
No. And especially lately on social media, on Twitter and on Tumblr, I've been seeing everyone posting the answer to the question we asked Larry King, and now it's being associated with different gift sets from the from these new trailers and everything.
Yep.
Where Adam's talking about family, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just get a kick at every time I see a new one where it's posting his answer about, Kylo Ren and about this movie. It's like, that's it's incredible. That's our question, damn it.
Yes.
I keep geeking out about
it. Oh, that's awesome. It's pretty cool, man. That question, man. That was an awesome thing to get on Larry King for a little while. Just for a second. But it's amazing how it keeps getting posted.
Right. It keeps coming back around.
It's pretty
amazing,
cool.
Especially as we get closer here. So I have to ask you.
All right.
Do you and Jackie have your tickets to see Raylo Part 2?
We have the freaking Raylo. We have tickets. We have tickets. Yeah, we're going to watch it the Saturday in the morning. I have the tickets.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're on board.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me?
I'm glad you're on board. With what I just said.
What?
Nothing, never mind.
I want to punch you through the internet sometimes.
You can't.
Sir.
You can't punch me through the internet. All right. Okay, so So you saw the long version of this trailer?
I've seen all the trailers. I've seen the teaser, the one where they do the light and dark and balance. I've seen the other one, and I've seen the longer one, like the extended trailer also. So I've seen all the trailers.
I'll tell you, before Thor, because we went and saw Thor in IMAX, and it was pretty incredible to see it end. Yeah, to see that last trailer up on the big screen.
That's pretty awesome. It was the trailer. Man, it's got me excited about the movie. Like I really want to see this one, and I like how this trailer has so many little things throughout. Like, is Kylo gonna take out Leia, and is Kylo Ren trying to get our friend Daisy Ridley onto the the dark side of the Force
to get right to the dark side.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, there's all that stuff in there, and I feel like it's just cut that way. It's not gonna be any of that. Like, that's just how I feel. It is. It's like such a weird thing. The only thing that I am really interested about this podcast, or not this podcast, but this trailer, is that I like seeing Snoke at the end. Like doing some Force stuff. It's just like, all right, okay, so let's see how this leads to that.
Right.
That's what I want to see, right?
So that's the thing that really has me curious, because of what happens at the end of the trailer and how Rey would get into Snoke's throne.
Yes, exactly.
Throne room, I feel like at some point she is going to be accepting Kylo Ren's hand and going before Snoke, but
it's entirely possible.
We've seen in Star Wars that sometimes has that's never a good thing. Like going in front of a Darksider is never a good thing.
No, it's not. But I mean, it's just like you said. I mean, we've seen it before with this, and it doesn't turn out positive usually. And so I'm curious if, like, my whole thing of this whole thing is the whole Grey Jedi thing. Is Rey gonna be one of those or something where she can kind of tap into both? I don't know.
I can't believe that could ever be sustainable.
Right? I feel like it's hard.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
It just seems to me like the dark, that you cheapen the dark side if you can walk that fine line. Like, the closest that I think we've ever seen really is probably this, is probably Kylo Ren getting caught between, the life he had and
yes,
who he's trying to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm really hoping that this movie explores more of that, and then I think the thing I really want to see is more about Rey's backstory and about where she comes from, because I mean that was really like the big mystery from the first movie, and we're supposed to find out a lot more about that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the whole. They don't explain anything at all in the episode 7. Like they don't tell you explain anything about her history. And so it would be nice to see more of that also. And I agree. I would love to see more of the conflict between the light and the dark, because in all the other Star Wars, we don't really get much of that. Usually there's Jedi and then there's Sith. You don't get this like conflict between both, which is one of the reasons why we both enjoyed that aspect of Kylo Ren in episode 7. So it's
definitely.
Yeah, so it'd be really interesting to see that further go into that, and I would love to see even Rey have that same conflict, which would explain why she would be in the throne room or whatever. So they're going to touch onto that, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's like so interesting. So I don't know.
I think other than that, I'm really excited to see Carrie one more time.
Yeah, it would be nice to see her again.
And it would be incredible if she had some screen time with Mark, and just for the character's sake, I think it would be cool to see Leia and Ben reunited at some point, because and I'm not sure that it happens in this movie, and now, and if it doesn't, that means it can't happen at all.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
But we'll see come December.
Yeah, we'll see come December and next month. Can you believe that? It's how long? It feels like it's been way longer than like a couple years.
I know. I'm telling you, having to wait. Well, I mean, that just proves that they came out of the gate really strong.
Yeah, they did.
Because Rogue One sorta held me over.
Right?
I was like, where's that
Rogue
trailer?
One is fantastic.
Rogue One is fantastic, but I was like, where is that trailer? JJ had a trailer a year before the movie.
Yep. Yeah, he did.
But I mean, and I know I've bugged you about it on so many podcasts.
Yeah,
where is that Star Wars trailer? Give me something. Give me something.
I guess the only thing I can say to end us on this note is I'm definitely excited at seeing all these characters again, because they were all great. I want to see Poe, I want to see Finn, I want to see Rey, I want to see everybody. So I can't wait, man. It's just a little more than a month from now, and then we can finally be reunited again.
All right. Like going back to school, except much better, right?
Exactly. All right, Jones.
Yep.
Let's just go ahead and take a break, and then we'll get into Thor Ragnarok.
Thor. All right.
Imprisoned, Thor finds himself in a lethal gladiatorial contest against his former ally. He must fight for survival and race against time to prevent the all-powerful Hela from destroying the Asgardian civilization. There we go. This movie is directed by Taika Waititi, I believe is how you pronounce that. Taika Waititi.
I'm glad you said it, not me.
Don't quote me on that, because I happened to not look that up and I forgot to. But
good.
He directed Two Cars, One Night, which is a short that he did, and he also did What We Do in the Shadows. And in this movie, he also voices Korg, the rock guy.
The rock monster.
Who has a lot of nice little one-liners throughout. He plays that character, too. This movie starring Chris Hemsworth, of course, as Thor. So Thor is starring in Thor.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Star Trek, The Cabin in the Woods, and Rush. Super sexy action star Tom Hiddleston for what he'll be known for. Forever as Loki. He was in War Horse, The Deep Blue Sea, and Crimson Peak. Just like... And that's definitely harking back to Kong Skull Island, where he just like... I just love how they film him in that.
Look like a damn action star.
Right? It's fantastic. Kate Blanchett as Hela. She was in The Aviator, Lord of the Rings, How to Train Your Dragon 2. Idris Elba as Heimdall. He was in The Wire, Takers, and Pacific Rim. And Idris Elba, I've been saying this before because we've done a lot of his movies lately. Like in the past year and a half. He is so busy. He's like the new Samuel L. Jackson, I feel like. Ooh. He's just he's all over the place. And so it's nice to see him again because I really like Idris Elba. Jeff Goldblum as the Grandmaster. This was a surprise. Jeff Goldblum sitting in here. This freaking movie. Where he's playing another kooky character, God. Jurassic Park, Independence Day, and The Big Chill. Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie. She was in For Colored Girls, Selma, and do you remember her in Creed?
Yes, of course, yeah.
I've spent the whole time, when I was watching the movie, I had to remember that she was the one in Creed, because when I was looking her up before, I was like, man, she looks so familiar, and I can't remember what she's from. And then I found out that she's the love interest in Creed, and so she's awesome.
She was losing her hearing, so I think visually there was something very different about her in that movie versus this one.
Yep, it was just awesome. Carl Urban as Scourge. He was in the Hercules and Xena TV series, both of those series, Lord of the Rings,
God.
Star Trek.
What are you doing? What are you doing? He was also Judge Dredd.
And Dredd.
You're killing me with these. As always, you find a way to do two things I know, and then one thing that's just wow, going like holy crap, you're right. He was in those awful TV shows. Damn it.
I appreciate you noticing that, because I've been doing that on purpose for a very long time. You're just what?
I usually don't call, I don't know. Sometimes I call you out on it. But damn.
Oh man, that's great. Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner / Hulk. He was in Zodiac, Shutter Island, and The Kids Are Alright. Anthony Hopkins as Odin, Silence of the Lambs, The Mask of Zorro, and Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yes, that white British guy in The Mask of Zorro.
Last but not least here is Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. He was in Sherlock, Star Trek Into Darkness, and The Imitation Game.
All right.
Oh, I enjoy. A lot of people don't enjoy the starring segment, but I love the starring segment.
I do too.
Every once in a while, something will come up that just I love. I love it. All right, Jones, let's just take a break real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get into the actual...
Right in it. Okay.
The actual good stuff here. All right.
Let's play some music.
right, Jones, we're back here from our break, and we're in our Quirks and Likes section. And I do this to you every once in a while, so I'm doing it this time. I'm throwing you a curveball. You first. Quirks.
Oh, man. Okay. Okay. I think there were two really big issues I had with this movie.
Let's see if I agree.
Okay. The first one is the swift death of a lot of previous characters who were in the movie franchise. Mm-hmm. Some of them don't even get lines.
Yes.
And Hela just shows up and kills them right away. And when you're looking at how powerful she is, I suppose it makes sense. But, at least one of them made a stand. And I guess I'm wondering why it wasn't all three. And I mean, Lady Sif is missing because, the actress who plays her couldn't make the taping. Otherwise, she would have died just like the rest of them.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I was really kind of disappointed that, some of the characters from the first two Thor movies were gone in the matter of seconds. And I think while it does serve a purpose to show how dangerous she is.
She is. That's the point. Yep.
Then there's something sort of cartoony that happens, and that is Heimdall shows up. He takes the sword out of the Bifrost gate, and Hela is stuck there with no way of leaving. And I mean, that's like the biggest foil for her part of the story, is the fact that Heimdall sneaks up, takes the sword, and then she can't begin her conquest. And so that allows everything to catch up and go back to Asgard.
Which is the other question that I have for you about this, is because when you watch, I can't remember if it was the first or second Thor movie because they just blur together for me, but there's definitely a time period where they disable the Bifrost, right? They destroy the Rainbow Road thing. Thor does that, right?
He does.
And that prevents anybody from going anywhere. So like in a previous movie, there was a way to stop her immediately if you just got rid of she couldn't go anywhere.
Right, yeah.
It's like such a weird thing. The whole time during the movie, one of my little issues was the fact that happened in a previous movie to prevent anybody from going anywhere. You just break it and then they have to repair it. And apparently it takes a movie for that to happen. For them to repair it. So like that would have definitely at least slowed her way the hell down, I would think.
And it does.
Right?
It does, yeah. I mean, Thor breaks it with his hammer.
Yes.
And then in the Avengers, when they all reunite, there's a brief scene where Loki says that Odin must have, wasted most of his energy just to get Thor out of there without the Bifrost. Exactly. So, yeah, at some point it gets fixed, obviously, and he's able to travel. Yep. But then he's gone for a really long time.
Yeah, he's gone for a while.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's really two quirks of mine rolled into one was the fact that she's, that they just 86 these characters, but then, she immediately gets foiled by something so simple.
Yep.
That's... anyway.
Heimdall just takes it and runs. And
takes it and runs.
And she struggles through most of the movie trying to get him.
Right, yes. Oh, man. Let's see. So, the other thing is that I really didn't... So, we saw the trailer, and we saw a lot of the footage.
Yes.
And a lot of the stuff that was used in marketing for the trailers ended up not happening in the movie due to massive reshooting.
Yes.
And so, there's a scene that's supposed to take place on a cliff in Scotland, and it very clearly does not.
Yes.
The shots don't, and I don't know if it looked any better in your theater, but in IMAX it doesn't hold up. It's very clear that they shot these scenes with Loki, Thor, and Odin on a soundstage or in a field.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better.
A camera one direction and then, very clearly not looking over the water in the other. And I'm just wondering why they didn't go there to do it, other than it would have obviously been too windy or you know, whatever, maybe to get the performances done.
Maybe that could be
but
it. But usually though, they're either patient with the wind or they just allow the wind to be there and they just do it with like ADR because the audio's atrocious.
Right. Yeah. Because it's worthless.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, I really felt like for as important as that scene was, you know, that Odin had a very quick death and that Hela shows up immediately after. Mm-hmm. I was just like, wow. I mean, we always talk about pacing, and I like good pacing. You know, that was sort of the issue that I had with all of Blade Runner, is their pacing is just horrendous in that movie, and in this one, I felt like it was way too quick.
Yeah, the thing about this movie is, and since you've mentioned that, that's actually one of my major quirks of this movie, is the movie is very choppy. There's no clear pacing going through, so you have some scenes like that are cut up real quickly. And then you have scenes where they're just there forever. And then it's like chopped up really quickly again, like towards the end of the movie. So there's a lot of that in this movie where it's like the stuff with Doctor Strange is really quick. And then you have the stuff with Odin and Loki and Thor that's chopped together really quick. And then you have the end of the movie, because they're all in separate different locations, it's chopped up really quick too. And so the flow of this movie has a huge, huge problem. And another reason why I have a problem with that is, since we're already talking about this choppiness, is one of the issues I had was that they spent a lot of time on that planet, and you almost forget that Asgard is in trouble. Like,
yes,
it's right. About to get destroyed. And so, like, they're staying there so long, and there's no sense of, like, we have to get this taken care of. Like, everybody's, like, a little too casual. Like, and it's like they're on a clock. We gotta go. And there's not a scene. You get, like, a couple scenes with Thor being like, Asgard's in trouble. But he's not like, we have to go. Like, it's not, like, he doesn't really, you don't get the emotion out of him where it's just like, this Asgard is in trouble and my home and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and just go off on somebody. And, like, just something to show that there's definitely a clock going. But that right. does not happen in this movie at all.
And, I mean, I think that's part of my problem. Like, for example, this is where, to me, it feels like two different movies are going on, because Thor really shouldn't be thwarted by the Grandmaster, you know, stuck from home so far away. It felt to me like if this was going to be a movie, and this was the whole thing to me felt like a disguise for a Planet Hulk movie.
That's exactly what it is. So you're not wrong. I feel like they did that on purpose, almost as fan service, but you're not wrong. That's what it is.
I don't have an issue with that if that's what the movie is supposed to be. But yes. I feel like because the movie is a Thor movie, that you're absolutely onto something. Asgard takes a back seat, and then, you know, all of a sudden we have this fight at the very end. And the thing that really had me, I think, beating my forehead was the fact that, you know, Thor is so really just gets his ass handed to him while he's on this other planet.
Yes. Seemingly
because he doesn't have his hammer, but he should be much stronger than that. And that is sort of one of the lessons that you know, Odin gives him at the very end, that, you know, it wasn't really about the hammer, it was about himself, and so he should be able, you know, he should be much stronger, even if he's really the one, you know, holding all the power and with one hand on the steering wheel, so to speak. And so while I was glad that conversation happened, you know, I was a little disappointed that at the end of this movie that Thor didn't rebuild his hammer.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Because I felt like that would have been, you know, it could have looked different. It could have had a different meaning at that point, that, you know, that he was ready to be a leader, and,
Yeah.
That he wasn't just going to use it for war. Then the other thing is, and this is really nitpicky, but do we really have to watch 2 more movies where Thor has a stupid eye patch? I mean, can they not do something about it? He's friends with Tony Stark. They've got magic. I don't understand why.
I was talking about that with Jackie at the end of the movie. Like, we were walking away, and she's like, "Did they really just he's obviously one of the most attractive characters."
Okay. Yes, I'll agree with that.
And they disfigured him. And it's so for me, I'm okay with it, but
yes.
Because to me it makes it feel like they're not afraid to hurt their characters, which is really uncommon in movies in general. Like, having him go through a couple movies where he's actually that is, to me, I think is a very interesting thing to do, and that's something that like Marvel would do because they don't run away from their characters; they just play them as is. And the other thing is, it's a symbolic thing because Odin had the same problem.
Right,
so you have the symbolism also, but it is like amazing that I'm like, wait a minute, they disfigured one of the most attractive characters on the list, which is amongst a bunch of other really attractive people. So it's really weird.
The god of thunder.
Right?
So, I don't know. I'm kind of hoping they figure out something for that.
I don't know.
Cybernetic eye. I mean, geez, even the X-Men figured that one out in the comic books. So,
yeah, it's a pretty interesting thing.
I think that's it.
Else?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Quirk-wise, that's it.
Okay, because since I've already got into my major quirks along with yours, I'm going to continue on this nitpickiness because I got one thing I thought was like, and I saw over and over again that I was just like, what is happening? And that's the appearing and disappearing weapons. Like, dude, this whole people are just like doing a move and then the blade gets longer. And I'm like, what the hell? Why is everything like that? It's like every single little weapon has this extra little like transforming feature to it. Or it just reappears via magic. It's like such a weird thing. And that just like, I don't know why it bothered me so much. just like, this is ridiculous. So that's my little nitpicky thing.
Okay.
And then the last thing I have that is kind of a little more serious but nitpicky is, man, Odin is a jerk. Odin is such a jerk, man.
Yes.
So according to this storyline, Odin uses his firstborn Hela to conquer a bunch of stuff and then decides to stop doing that and essentially banish her and lock her away and then hide that he did it and had another kid and then adopted Loki, right?
Right, yeah.
And then completely ignored everything that he did. Like, he was clearly a conquering king. And I was just shocked that there was no payoff at all in this movie for that. The one payoff you get is the scene that we're talking about earlier, where he goes, where Thor says he's not strong enough, but Odin says you're stronger. What would have been a better line, because that's a very cliche line anyway, what would have been a better line is to say that he could be a better king than I was, or something like that, because he never faces up to what he did. He never faces up at all. He's a complete jerk through the whole thing. He's just like, he's just banishing people left and right. And then, like, I cannot believe he used his daughter to conquer all these things. And then she's like too ambitious. He's like, whoa, we should stop this. And then banish her. It's just like, Like, what a complete jerk. So through the whole movie, I was just like, God, Odin is such an asshole. The whole thing. And the whole time I was thinking that. And that's the last thing I wanted to say.
I mean, really, though, if you go back and look at that first movie, because you and I were talking about this, I really didn't like that they made that, Loki was just this stolen child from the Frost Giants.
Yes.
And, in a way that comes full circle. But then when you meet Hela and you see how she is, I mean, she and Loki are so similar.
Yes.
That it's crazy considering that, it's that they weren't raised together whatsoever. I mean, it's even like how they dress and everything.
Yep.
Is really similar. And so but if you look at that first movie, I mean, what Odin did and the reasons why he did it was so that, he could basically put a different king on the Frost Giant throne when Loki was ready. I mean, that's a really selfish thing to do. And, that was really his intention. And I think at some point when he started raising his sons, it softened some.
Yes.
But I mean, this totally throws a different spin on all of that. Because this entire time she's been imprisoned. And I think what ends up getting released is something, it's entirely his doing.
Yeah, and not only is it entirely his doing, but she's entirely justified in her opinion of everything.
Exactly.
It's like, well, of course she would do what she did. Like, that's exactly what I would expect from her. And so it's just so bizarre, and it's really glossed over in this movie. And I just like, how does he not fess up to what he did? It bothered me so much.
Right. And then, the fact that he still, I don't know, somehow seems heroic.
Right? He somehow seems heroic. And you don't even get a reaction to Thor when Thor looks up, because he goes back to the throne area, right? And he looks up and he looks down and sees his face there. And he looks up and then he notices that's the reveal when he realizes that what she was saying is totally true. And you don't even get a reaction from that either. He just kind of looks up and is like, huh. I'm like, what? How did you not have a reaction that your father has been lying to you?
They don't have much of a conversation either. I mean,
no.
she cuts it really short. Yeah. And I felt like maybe there should have been a discussion. She was like, all right, get out of the throne. And then they start fighting.
Right.
Which, part of me likes, but yeah, I mean, I think there wasn't really any reasoning with her.
No.
There wasn't even like an attempt. That was just like, oh, nope, this is how we handle things in this family. And maybe that's how it has to be.
Maybe that is how it has to be.
They either hide it or they banish. They either hide an issue or they banish it.
Yep.
Not winning any parenting awards, Odin's son.
All right, man. You want to get to the likes then?
Our likes, yes. We've got plenty.
You go ahead. Throw it at me.
First
back
again?
to you, sir. Yep.
Okay, well, I loved the scenes with Doctor Strange.
Oh, yeah.
For a number of reasons. Because, one of the things that we talked about that I had mentioned during the Doctor Strange movie is that, how he deals with an enemy who is Dormammu, who is, on the level of Thanos, if not more powerful.
Yeah.
And that he essentially plays him to a draw, and that's really one of the strengths of Doctor Strange, is that he outsmarts his opponents.
Yes.
But I love that he lets Loki fall for half an hour. Like, I mean, that's such freaking payback.
Right?
And I love that Doctor Strange is entirely aware of that. Like, Loki is totally deserving. But then when Loki calls him out as a second-rate sorcerer, Doctor Strange reigns supreme in the Marvel Universe.
Yes, he does.
As, in the realm of sorcery. And so he just sends them both away. Like, there isn't a fight, and I think that would have been really cool. But, like, staying true to character, he sends them back to their own movie.
Yep.
And I love that. Like, I love the thought that went into all of that. Yep. And the fact that, he was basically saying, this is, whatever. This isn't our story. Yep. This is yours. You got to go back to yours now. Yep. And I love, from a comic book standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, how that all played out.
It was great.
Seeing Hulk naked and a lot of other... and a lot of other little insider jokes. I mean, this is something that we always wonder about. And I mean, we had to, unfortunately, see the Thing naked in a very terrible Fantastic Four movie.
Yep.
But I mean, I felt like there were a lot of little inside jokes.
Yep.
To comic books in general sprinkled throughout. And I mean, these are the things that fanboys argue about all the time. And then to just see one of them where, we have another character reacting to seeing the other one naked is just a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
I loved the relationship with the Hulk and
Valkyrie.
With the Valkyrie character. God, what is her name?
I as far as I know, they just call her Valkyrie. I don't remember what the name they used in there, but she's the only Valkyrie
I can't either. There. All of a sudden. I mean, she's, I guess, the last of them, which is...
she's the last one.
Kind of a shame, but it explains her character arc.
Yeah, and I enjoyed Valkyrie as a character in general. Like, I really hope to see more of her character, moving forward. It was cool to have just like this other one here.
And there's little things like the rivalry between her and the other, one of the other collectors.
Right.
Which is just like, that would so be the case.
Right.
That there's one person jealous of you. And, I really was not looking forward to seeing Jeff Goldblum in this. Yeah. But, like, the more I saw that character, I was just like, wow, I mean, he is pompous enough. And there's this little joke about his age. And the thing that I love is that no one addresses it. like Thor and Loki both go completely quiet, and he's looking for someone to say that he only looks like 30 or 40.
Yeah, right.
Do you remember that joke where it's like, I'm thousands of years old, and then he just waits for someone to say something, and then they don't give him what he's looking for.
Well, the thing is he goes, he goes, he said something like, if I was on another planet, I'd be like 1,000 years old, but on this planet, and he just kind of...
Yes, right, and he waits for them to say something, and they wisely don't say anything. I just absolutely lost it. I thought that was incredibly brilliant.
It was great. It was having the Grandmaster in there with Jeff Goldblum was so good, and I was concerned too. But he just works so well for him. It works really well.
I am glad that Heimdall made it to the end of this movie.
Yeah.
And that we didn't have to see goodbye to him. I kind of want to just see a movie with him. Because he's so interesting. Like, what's his daily... What's a day in his life like? Okay. I mean, I love this movie overall, I think, so...
Okay. So, I'll get into some of my bits since we're going forward here. One of the things I loved about this movie is I thoroughly enjoyed the relationship between Loki and Thor. Like, they acted like brothers in this movie. Like, significantly. I loved all the scenes where he's just throwing stuff at his, invisible thing. Like, his
Right, yeah.
His little clone version of him, and he's just like, I'd give you a hug if I knew you were here. And then he like catches it. It was like a constant joke through the whole thing. And to me, they acted like they were raised together as brothers. And this is the only time, because in Avengers and in the Thor movie and then in the other Thor, like there's just not, they don't act like brothers, but they definitely act like brothers in this one. And I absolutely loved it. I loved every bit of it. It was so cool. And just tacking on to that, a good part about this whole movie is all the characters. Like, all the characters are just really interesting and likable. I love the relationship Loki and Thor. I love the relationship between Hulk and Valkyrie, like you were saying earlier. I really enjoyed Cate Blanchett. Also, I thought that when she was on screen, she was really strong. And so it was just, I just loved all the characters in this. And that was a really good credit to this movie, and it drives the movie. And so I think it's really important that they did that. The other thing I want to say is that I feel like this movie in particular is the correct tone for Thor. I think the problem with Thor is he's closer to like a DC style character. And when I say that, he's a god. So there's a lot of things that can't damage him, and there's a lot of things that just doesn't work. Like, you can't do anything about him because he's still a god. And so all the DC characters are like that, and that's why I've always been the type of person where the DC characters are the ones that you look up to, and the Marvel characters are the ones you relate to. And the way they did that with Thor is they made him really, like in this version of Thor, I feel like they really ramped up what he's like in the other two Thor movies to the point where he has all these little character flaws, and how he's just like makes all these little mistakes and does things like that. And that happens in this movie a lot. And I think that makes him it makes him a friendlier character to relate to just as a normal person. And so one of the things I want to say is that this movie does that, and the other two didn't quite get it right. And that's why I've always had an issue with those first two movies. This one I really enjoyed. The only other thing I have to say is Karl Urban as Scourge. I absolutely have to root for Karl Urban in a movie. I have to. So
right.
The whole movie I was just like, damn it, man. Like, come on. Give me something because it's Karl Urban. Give me something.
Why are they wasting him?
Why are they wasting him? And so then he comes back and he finally is just like, for Asgard. And I'm like, all right. Now the universe is correct.
Yeah,
and I feel better.
Is pointed north again.
Exactly. And I love that about the movie too. And that's all I have to say.
Just one more thing.
All right.
I didn't want to stop you. You were on the roll, but you mentioned the difference. I think Thor coming full circle in the movie. There's little things where it gets mentioned that he got dumped. And yes. I mean, he has a very, he has a very relatable response.
He does.
That, it was actually him, but you can tell that he's got, sour grapes over it still.
Yep.
There's also, and it's such a cheap joke, but the thing is, I love the response that the guys have to it, and that's when they steal the Grandmaster's ship. And Valkyrie says that he used it for orgies. Yeah. And I mean, both Thor and Banner react the same way. And Thor's like, okay, just don't touch anything. And, but I mean, like, as the God of Thunder, he would have, in his youth, done that plenty of times.
Probably.
Probably. I mean, like, that's what he was at the beginning.
Yes.
Of, in the first Thor movies.
Yes, that's what he was.
So I just, there's a lot of things that I think they get right by keeping in the humor, and I think allowing someone as powerful as him to be vulnerable and, as you were saying, make mistakes, and
Yep. And and like you said, it does make the character full circle. Like, I feel like now he's Thor, and he's actually how he should be. And hopefully they continue that moving forward. Like, he's not the brash, arrogant child as much as he was from the first one. From the first Thor movie, he's more complete in this one. And I think that's just awesome that they did that with this. You got anything else?
That's it, buddy.
All right, let's go ahead and rate it then. I think we already know our opinions on it. I thought that I enjoyed it way more than its predecessors. And I thought that, for all the reasons I said earlier, that I love the characters. The movie is fun. It's got a lot of funny moments in there. I love how Thor comes full circle, and I feel like this is how he should be. And I say see it.
I'm also gonna say see it. I'm gonna say see it, buy it. I think that the movie is just a ton of fun from start to finish.
Yep.
And, it's weird when I think about it, and I didn't walk away thinking, where does this rank as far as greatest superhero movies of all time? I mean, this to me doesn't feel like it can go in that category. It just feels like something else entirely.
Yeah,
it just feels like a really good movie, and it is almost above, I think, something like the Avengers. It just totally has a different feel.
Yeah, I think it's a different tone of a movie, and it almost feels like it's in its own little genre.
Right.
It's not quite the same as the other superhero movies, and it just makes it a fun movie in general, which actually I think pushes it closer to like Guardians of the Galaxy as opposed to some of the other Avengers movies.
I mean, what it reminds me of is, this idea that, Marvel's working towards evergreen characters, and, there's 50 James Bond movies, and, there could always be Thor movies, if they're done like this. And this was a huge spectacle.
Oh, yeah.
And, I don't know if you can always do them like this or not. But, if you do, then you get to have the Hulk by his side. And maybe the Hulk needs to be by his side because it makes sense.
Yeah.
To have the two strongest ones together and balancing each other out.
Yeah, could be. It could be. Which also just randomly reminds me of like how concerned Bruce Banner was, and at the end of the movie he's basically Hulk. So is he still Hulk?
Yeah, that may be it. That might be the last time we see Banner.
Yeah, might be the last time. All right, man, you want to sign out?
Let's sign out.
All right. If anybody wants to contact us, we always have our home on the web at halfpastpodcast.com.
Like us on Facebook.
Rate us on iTunes and Google Play, and we're actually on TuneIn now also.
Ooh,
forgot to tell you.
I like that. TuneIn.
TuneIn's awesome.
We're on Stitcher and Libsyn. I love my Stitcher app. It's the
Email
best.
us at halfpastcast@gmail.com. That's halfpastcast@gmail.com.
Tweet us at halfpastpodcast.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. Next week, actually in 2 weeks, we have Justice League.
All right, Justice League.
So we're going to watch this Justice League movie, and I'm going to hope that there's a lot of Wonder Woman in it to make it better.
Yes, make it better.
Yep.
Wonder Woman Part 2 with
I'm hoping,
some other guys.
I'm hoping that's why there was reshoots with Wonder Woman. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
I think this movie needs more Wonder Woman.
This movie needs some more Wonder Woman. That's great. There's these other heroes and stuff. But if we can't have Superman, then we need a lot more Wonder Woman.
Yes. Exactly. I am, I wasn't very excited to see Thor Ragnarok, but I'm even less excited to see Justice League.
I'm gonna slap you through the internet. I know how you always want to punch me through the internet. I'm gonna slap you through the internet right now.
The thing is I'm just like, there's so many little things that bother me about Justice League, and that's you have Aquaman, who I just automatically have a weird when you have Jason Momoa, and then you have his name as Arthur Curry, which is like the whitest name ever. Like it's just like that kind of thing. Just is this weird. Like the trailer advertises or announces him as Arthur Curry. Like you don't think of Jason Momoa when you think of Arthur Curry, but that doesn't even bother me that much. But because it's Aquaman, nobody cares about Aquaman. But then you have like Cyborg, I think is really weird, and then you just have the Flash has like this armor on, which is really weird because you think that would slow him down. I don't know. I just like I'm just like all these little things that just annoy me about Justice League, and so I'm not too excited about it. But Wonder Woman will be good to see again. That's gonna be good. So I don't know how you feel about it, but
I kind of have an issue with how Dan Snyder does these movies, and so I think
Zack
it's
Snyder?
Zack Snyder, Dan Snyder. I have an issue with the Washington Redskins owner because he won't change their goddamn name. Zack Snyder, but we don't have Zack this time, and I'm not sure how much of his movie is even going to be in there. But I have a feeling that a lot of the stuff they changed was related to Cyborg. Cyborg was just not looking very good.
He was not.
I think he's looking better. But weirdly, that's like, my girlfriend's sons. I mean, that's the thing they're really excited to see. Cyborg of all things. So
that's weird. He's an interesting character. It's just, I don't know. I just thought he looked really weird. I mean, he's a little interesting, but the thing about Cyborg is he kind of comes in and out of the different DC stuff. He's usually a Teen Titan and stuff like that. But it's just, for me, I think the biggest issue I had with Cyborg is he didn't look like metal enough. Like he looked closer to Iron Man, like a guy in a suit, as opposed to like he's been replaced with parts.
Right, yeah. He's not the bigger,
Yeah, he's supposed to be a larger combat style cyborg. So it's a really weird that's what they chose to go with, but it is what it is.
Mm.
All right, that's enough of me bashing.
Fine.
Justice League.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe it'll be great. We'll be like, oh, wow, this is really something.
Well, Thor was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I liked it more than all the others. So, I mean...
The Sour Patch over here. All right.
But then again, there's a big difference between Marvel and DC when it comes to these movies. Oh. All right. This is the Half Past Podcast. I'm Graham Ricks.
Jonesy.
See you next flick.